Hey, what's going on, guys? Felix here from Podcast Secrets and the Shopify Masters Podcast. And today I want to talk to you about the importance of watching someone else do it first. So I was at the dog park with my dog, and he used to be really good at fetch. He used to be super good at fetch, and I think maybe because of old age, or maybe he doesn't have as much practice. We don't bring him to the dog park as much or play as much fetch with him. Kind of sad, but he's not as good anymore. And I recognize that there are usually a couple, so there's three ways that he can play fetch with me, right? One way is that he can have the ball in my hand, and all of a sudden he just sprints off. He takes off even before I throw the ball. And all of a sudden, by the time I throw the ball, he's so focused on running, he's so far away from the ball is that he loses track of it. The other way to do is on the other extreme, where I throw the ball and he waits too long to go after it, or he's not paying attention to it, and the ball is too far gone for him to track it down and catch it. The middle kind of route that has led to his most success with fetching is that he is just barely behind the ball. So he's watching me. I throw the ball and he's right on it. He's right behind the ball, chasing it down right as the ball is going down the field or going down the park. So following the ball as closely as possible. And it's really kind of a perfect analogy for the way I learn. I think a lot of other people can relate, which is that there can be only so many books and so many courses, so many articles, so many blogs, so many podcasts you can listen to where you could either be too early in the game, right? You're too early where you don't actually need the information yet, and all of a sudden by the time you need it, it's already kind of gone and beyond in your head. The danger with that is that you start thinking, oh, I already consumed this information, so I don't have to go and relearn it. So that's when you're too early in the game. And then when you're too late, when you're too far behind the ball, is when you are just constantly trying to catch up and learn after you've made the mistakes. There is a middle ground, which is to learn as you go. And what I recognize is that the way that I've learned the best is just to follow someone else that's done it already successfully. The more I can see exactly how they walk down that path, the easier it is for me to visualize it myself and follow along. So I'm right behind the ball, right behind the role model that I want to follow, the person that's doing exactly what I want to do. I'm right behind them. I'm following so close behind them, and I can see just one or two steps ahead by watching what they're doing, which inspired me to create the Behind the Scenes podcast launch, because I have the Podcast Secrets book. I have the courses out there to teach you how to launch and grow your podcast. The issue, I think, is that for some people, that's good enough. That's perfect. That's everything you need to get going. You're a type of person that has the manual, and you walk through yourself, and you kind of know exactly where to start, where to begin, and you know exactly what step to take next. You know exactly one or two steps ahead. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can walk your way towards it. The issue is, I think, for some of us, we learn best by modeling, by copying, essentially, seeing how someone else has walked down that path and following right behind them, right in their shadows, walking right down the path for them. When I started my podcast, that's how I learned. I learned not by reading blogs or reading courses or reading articles. I just kind of reverse engineer what I saw was already working for a lot of successful podcasters. So that's why what inspired me to create the Behind the Scenes podcast launch, where I take the book, take the course that I've created, take the content I've created, where you could take the book again and launch yourself and launch your own podcast and follow as a manual. But if you're a type of person that wants to see it being done, that's what the Behind the Scenes podcast launch is all about, where I take the exact same book that you already got and walk it from front to back, executing each step to launch a brand new podcast. Because I've already started a successful podcast before with the Shopify Masters Podcast. But what do I take the exact same book and start where everyone else starts, right at the beginning, and walk that path towards launching and growing a successful podcast all from scratch, using the content that's already there, but treating myself as if I'm a beginner. You can see all the behind the scenes of what works, what doesn't work, the struggles, where I begin, what kind of software I'm using, what kind of hardware I'm using, all of the things that are necessary to launch a podcast. Being able to see someone actually do it in quote unquote in real life, I think expose you to the nuances, exposes you to the kind of questions you didn't think about asking, exposes you to what actually needs to happen in reality. Because the great thing about a lot of courses is that they give you a lot of information. The bad thing is they give you a lot of information where you don't need to do everything, right? Because there are kind of stages to it all, where at the beginning you don't actually need to do everything, right? If you some things that you do are considered kind of over optimizing or premature optimizing, where you're doing all these extra things at the beginning that actually do not help you on the critical path towards launching your podcast, but would have been much more handy if you did it later. But because you're doing it so early, it's distracting you from the main goal of launching first. Because you could be focused on growing your podcast when you should be focused on launching and recording and creating content. So knowing the order of things, knowing it's actually necessary to launch a podcast is completely different than knowing everything that you need to do to launch a podcast successfully. Because you can launch a podcast and then kind of backfill and work backwards and do all the extra things that aren't actually necessary. But it's hard to know that without actually seeing it being done in real life, which is, again, there's a reason why I started the behind the scenes podcast launch. So if you're interested in launching your podcast, but you'd rather first just see someone else do it, and you actually might not even need to read the book or read it in the content, just watch someone else do it and mimicking and copying it. It's the way I learned, and I've realized that just this year that I learned just by seeing someone else do it first, copying right behind them, being right in their shadow, and recognizing what is the path towards success. Because I'm following someone else that's already been successful. I am in, basically riding a coattail essentially, and kind of working from there has been much more successful for me. So hopefully that helps you out. If you're interested in doing something similar with podcasting, make sure to sign up for my email list at podcastingsecrets.co. You get the free book, the Podcasting Secrets book. You get all that for free, and then all my content's there. Then you also hear more about the behind-the-scenes podcast launch if you want to follow in footsteps of a successful podcaster, launch a podcast from scratch. Hopefully it helps you out. Talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.